Hello everyone, my name is Elise. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing so good today. We are going to be doing my November book haul. I'm very excited to do this book haul because it contains all of the books that I got from the Portland Book Festival, which I went to in the beginning of November and I go to every year. I've gone for the past 5 years or so. And I just have so much joy about going, and it's nice for me to relive all that joy as I go through the books that I got there. There are also some other books that I got not at the festival that I will be inserting here as well. And I'm filming this in the middle-ish of November, and I'm thinking I'm not going to buy any more books in November. I'm about to leave the country and will be gone most of the rest of the month. So I'm not thinking I'm going to be buying stuff while I'm away. So hopefully this contains all of the books that I buy in November. If not, I'll insert the other ones in my December book haul. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the books. I'm going to go over the festival books first, and then we'll move on from there. So at the Portland Book Festival, the first session I went to for the day, in which I teared up because I was like literally just so happy to be there that I was tearing up, and I was like, what is happening to me? But you know, it's good to tear up over happy things, so I'm okay with that. So my first session I wanted to go to see Lydia Yuknavitch talk about thrust. So I have had my eye on this book for a while, and then as soon as I saw that she was going to be at the Portland Book Festival, I knew that I would get it there so I could get it signed. All the ones that I bought at the festival for sessions, I did get signed. That's one of the lovely things about going, is you get to meet the authors afterward. So this one is signed, and it says for Elise B. Oceans, and then it has her signature. That makes sense with this book. If you've read it, you know. Also, you know, you can tell from the cover, there is a sea turtle that is a character in this book. So Lydia Yuknavitch does not do many interviews. She actually lives in Oregon, which is part of why she was there. And she did a reading from the beginning of this book, which was phenomenal. It has slightly an experimental form. So if you look at that, you can see that there's like a section where like that whole section is just body parts. And this is a creation story, and hence the body parts. So a body is getting created. And this is told from a chorus of voices. And then there's also one protagonist kind of that floats in and out of the novel at different times. And that's kind of meant to like moor you. And then the rest is kind of a fragmented type of style. I've heard great things about this book. I don't think it really has a cohesive plot. I don't think that's the point. She talked about how she was trying to write a book in which it strayed away from the traditional understanding of plot to see if she could, you know, create a cohesive novel without having conventional plot. So that was kind of her project for herself. And this says, as rising waters and an encroaching police state endanger her life and family, a girl with the gifts of the carrier travels through water and time to rescue vulnerable figures from the margins of history. So I'm very excited to get to this. The talk was phenomenal. And Lydia also said that part of why she agreed to come is because she got to be in conversation with Juhea Kim, who wrote Beasts of a Little Land. And I should say, this is published by Riverhead Books. And Beasts of a Little Land by Juhea Kim is published by Echo. I wasn't planning on buying this book. I'd heard good things about it, but wasn't sure if it was for me. But then hearing them kind of talk together made me want to get it. So, ooh, book down. Okay, she's okay. She's okay. So this book follows, I think, almost 100 years of a certain family. And I think the way that it starts is a Korean soldier, a young Korean soldier, saves the life of a Japanese captain, I believe, officer, and they're being attacked by a tiger, and they save their life. And then that act has ramifications for the next, 100 so years. So a little bit of like a butterfly effect type of situation. And this, I think, is supposed to be like somewhat of a hero's journey. It's very epic in scope, and I believe is pretty plot heavy. So I'm excited to have a book that is kind of plot heavy. Like when I want that, I want that. So I'm excited to have this in the arsenal. And yeah, they just had such a good conversation with each other. They both loved each other's books. So that was like so exciting to hear. And I'm very excited to get to this one at some point. So that is Beasts of a Little Land, which I also got personally signed. So yay. All right, so that was the first session I went to. I went to like 6 overall. So the next session that I got something in to get signed was with Morgan Tulty, and that is Night of the Living Res. And this is published by Tin House, which is a publisher from Portland, Oregon. So very apt. And they were in conversation with Chelsea Beaker, who wrote most recently, what is it called? Heartbroke, and then previously wrote Godshot. And this is a short story collection that is interconnected. And this takes place in Maine on the Penobscot Reservation. And Morgan Tulty is registered Penobscot and grew up there originally. I think currently he lives in Bangor, which is hilarious because I was just in Bangor like a month or so ago. But this follows a main character who's struggling with substance abuse. But there's a lot of dark humor in this. When he did his reading, that really came out. And I think in some ways that made some of the horrifying scenes more poignant to put like a comedic lens on top of them, which sounds counterintuitive, but it just worked when he read it. So I really enjoyed that. This also has a lot to do with like the connection to the land. So Penobscot, if you don't know, is an island in Maine. So what it's like to be like feel the closeness and oneness of all being on an island together, like having all of your community on an island, but then also the claustrophobia that comes with that. So yeah, lots of interesting things going on here. I'm very excited to read this. The talk again was fantastic. And yeah, the talk with Chelsea Beaker was about kind of home and like homecoming and a sense of place, because both of their books have a strong sense of place in them. So that is Night of the Living Res. All right, next two. So this book I already owned and I just brought with me to get signed, and that is Bodywork by Melissa Febos. And this is The Radical Power of Personal Narrative, and this is published by Catapult. And she was the moderator in conversation with 2 other authors who had written like memoir, autobiography-esque books. And obviously this is about personal narrative. So it's about what it's like inserting yourself into a narrative that you're creating for consumption. So it's a very interesting talk. And this signature is very special to me because I originally bought this book for work, to read, to kind of help me in my work. And so I ended up talking to Melissa about that. So in the signature, it obviously has my name up top, and then it says, "Thank you for your important work." And then she signed it. So very special signature for me. It was a good conversation that I had with her, and she is a lovely human being. So happy to have this as well. I mean, I already had it, but I'm happy to have the signature added to it. And then the last one I had that I got signed at the festival, this is the session that I had to make sure I was at. So there are multiple sessions happening at the same time. So you have to pick the ones that you want to prioritize. And this was like my number one. I gave up seeing Brandon Taylor to see this. And I have multiple Brandon Taylor books that I wanted to get signed, but I gave it up so I could see this author. And that is Leila Mottley, who wrote Nightcrawling. And she was in conversation with Mitchell S. Jackson, whom I also love and is part of why I wanted to go even more. He wrote Survival Math, and I also have a personalized signed copy of that because I met him at the Portland Book Festival a couple of years ago. So they were in conversation together. It was phenomenal, blew me away. I think I also teared up in that one. And this is published by Knopf. So this is about Kiara, and Kiara has now become responsible for taking care of her family, which consists of her brother and then also this young boy that lives in their apartment complex that is not being cared for. So she feels like some sort of personal responsibility to make sure that he's okay. She needs money, and she needs a lot of money quickly. So she decides to start Nightcrawling, as the title would suggest, and that's just it's another term for sex work. So they find themselves doing sex work, and then the police get involved and start abusing her and abusing their power. So this is based off of a true story that happened in Oakland a number of years ago. And this is a fictionalized narrative of what happened there. And Leila talked about how that news story greatly affected her and still affects her today, like being herself a young Black woman in Oakland. There's a lot that she talked about in this book of Black women feeling like they're forced into caretaking roles, and Black men, aka the brother in this novel, being very selfish, and that comes from a place of needing to be successful, like monetarily successful, and in order to do that, having to be selfish in order to like get themselves out of poverty. Yeah, there's also a white lawyer in this who is a woman that represents a lot of stuff like about virtue signaling and kind of white feminism and all these types of issues that are kind of being inserted and added on top of Kiara's already insurmountable problems, it seems. There's so many other things that she spoke about that are going on in this book. It was just a phenomenal conversation to listen to, and I'm so excited to read this. So this is already a signed first edition, but I did get it personally signed. So there's the original signature, but I got it personally signed by her, so I will show you that as well. So there is the personal signature, and I'm very happy to have this and very excited to get to it. I can't wait. This was also nominated, it was longlisted for the Booker Prize this year as well. All right, so the last book that I got at the festival was not one that was related to a session. So they also have a book expo that you can go to and buy books from small presses or indie presses. So I really quickly went through that in between sessions. I didn't have a lot of time. And Two Lines Press was there and had a booth. So I went to their booth and picked up something, and that was That We May Live. So Two Lines has the adorable like cat logo. It's so cute. But yeah, this is a short story collection or an anthology. So it's all different authors, and this is a collection of speculative Chinese fiction. So this contains 7 different authors, and each one has a short story. I'm very excited to get to this. The nice thing about anthologies is you get to try them out and see if there's any authors you want to pursue more work from. So I'm excited for that part. And the production of this is really nice. So each short story collection starts with a page like this, and it has the title, it has the author, the translator, and then a little blurb. And then it has the blurb in Chinese as well as English. And then this is also the title in Chinese. So I really love that. I love the way it looks. I'm very excited to get to this collection and happy to own it. So thank you, Two Lines Press, for being there. They have other collections that are, themed around different things. So if you're curious about that, feel free to check them out. All right, that's the last thing I bought at the festival. So whenever I go to Portland, I have to go to Powell's. If you don't know what Powell's is, it's just a giant independent bookstore. It's the biggest one in North America. I don't know if it's like the biggest one in any larger scope, but it's massive. So I got 2 books there. The first one is The Harpy by Megan Hunter, and this is by Grove Press. And I've wanted this book for a while because the premise sounds so interesting. This is based off of a myth that I can never remember what the original myth is, but who knows. But this is about a man who cheats on his wife and basically says that his wife can hurt him 3 times, in order to even the scales between them. And I think this gets very dark. I think it quickly escalates on the way that she is hurting him. And I'm very excited to see what this is like. The premise just sounds so good, so I can't wait to dive in. So that is the Harpy. The last one I bought at Powell's is Split Tooth, and this is by Tanya Tagaq. And Tanya Tagaq is an Indigenous author from Canada. And this is about a girl, I think a young girl, I can't remember how old she is, who grows up in Nunavut in the 1970s. And she's already kind of dealing with a lot of stuff going on in her family and community. So I think there's stuff about alcohol abuse. I think there's, violence going on. And then she becomes pregnant, and all of a sudden she has to navigate what it means to be pregnant in this context and how she's going to, live and what she's going to do. So I've heard great things about this. This is published by Penguin, and I'm very excited to have it. Also, I love that black cover with just a white image on it. So stunning. So happy to have this as well. All right, those are all the Portland books. We have made it through the Portland books. I have 4 other books that I have bought here in Seattle that I will go over as well. The first one I picked up from Drink Books, which is actually very close to where I live, and that is Normal Distance, and this is by Elisa Gabbert, and this is published by whom? The Ant. What's the Ant? Soft Skull Press. And this is a poetry collection, and this says, "It is funny and chilling, and these poems collect strange facts, interrogate language, and ask unanswerable questions that offer the pleasure of discovery on nearly every page." So sounds good to me. The staff blurb that was written under it is why I bought it, but I can't even remember what it said anymore. So yeah, I'm excited to pick up this poetry collection. Always looking for a good poetry collection, and I do love that cover as well. So excited to have this one. All right, the next 3 I picked up from Queen Anne Book Company, which is my favorite indie in Seattle. I absolutely adore them. They are a smaller store, but they are the only store in Seattle that has a section dedicated to translated literature, which I don't get why that's so hard to find. This is my little diatribe. I wish that more people would do this, because when I go into a store, I want to discover things I don't already know about. The books I already know I want to buy, that's totally fine. I'm probably going to order them directly from the publisher to support them. Or I can order them through my local indie. I don't need to go in for it. When I go in, I want to discover stuff that I don't already know about. And I mostly am wanting to buy translated literature. Yeah, I want to be able to go to a section and be able to read all the blurbs, which I can do at Queen Anne Book Company. I get the reasons why other bookstores mix it all together. It's all literature, that makes sense, but it's really hard to find the translated literature amongst the 80% normal non-translated literature, and have to weed through all of them to find anything that's translated. So anyway, diatribe over. We're going to talk about the books that I bought at Queen Anne Book Company. So the first one is Weasels in the Attic, and this is by Hiroko Oyamada, and this is translated from the Japanese by David Boyd. I have read both of Oyamada's other novels that have been translated to English, which are The Hole in the Factory. I've read them both this year, and this is their 2022 release. I'm very excited about this one. So I have had an issue with the previous 2 being slightly dry. The premise of this one sounds like it's gonna be a winner, and I'm very excited. Also, all the covers kind of match. They all have the monochrome, bright color background and then a single image on them, so I'm happy to add to the collection. This one is thrilling and mysterious, and it explores themes of fertility, masculinity, and marriage in contemporary Japan. The format of this is also interesting. It's told in 3 distinct scenes. It's not classified as different stories, it says scenes, so I'm curious to see what that is about. I think it says one of them is in a room above a failed pet store, surrounded by rare and exotic fish. And it has old friends discussing dried shrimp and new relationships is what it says. So that's just one of them. I won't say what the other 2 are about, but I'm very excited to get to this. It's very short, like all her books are. And I want to get to this year because I want to have read all of them in the same year. So I'm hoping to get to this very soon, and I can't wait. This is published by New Directions. All right, next book that I got at Queen Anne Book Company is Hugs and Cuddles, and this is by Joao Gilberto Noel. I probably most definitely said that wrong. I will look up how to say it phonetically and like put it phonetically in the description box. That will also help me not to mispronounce it again. This is translated from the Brazilian Portuguese by Edgar Garbeletto. And this is published by Two Lines, I think, as well. Yeah, Two Lines Press, which I spoke about earlier. So this one I had never heard of. So this is another instance I had never heard of this. And then was reading the blurbs in the translated section and thought this sounded very good. After abandoning his traditional life, the narrator of this book zealously commits himself to a man he calls the Engineer, a childhood friend with whom he shared a pivotal sexual encounter. Many years have passed since their, initial interaction with each other, and then they kind of re-meet and things ensue from there. So this says it's questioning themes of gender and what it means to have artistic expression. So I'm very intrigued. I think this is going to be good. This is also a very cute, like tiny little book. So I'm excited to get to this and have it in the collection. It's also a gorgeous cover. All right, last book that we have. This I'd never even heard of, but this is in the staff section at Queen Anne Book Company. And that is Morningside Heights by Joshua Henkin. And this is published by Vintage Books. And this has like a very shiny cover, but the staff blurb is what made me get it. Again, can't remember what it said now. But this says it's a family portrait. So this takes place in New York City in the 1970s and follows Prue Steiner, who falls in love and marries Spence Robin, her hotshot young Shakespeare professor. But 30 years later, something is wrong with Spence. He can't concentrate, he falls asleep constantly. Like Prue is struggling on her own to care for him. So I think this has a lot to do with like a struggling marriage, which I do love reading about. That might be part of why I got it. Then I think like she's struggling, and then one day she meets a man and the possibility of a new romance blooms for her. I also like this idea of like the exploration of what you do when you're in a struggling marriage. And some people do have affairs. That is a thing, for better or worse. And I'm excited to hear about this. So this says that it's a sweeping and compassionate novel. Compassionate is also one of my buzzwords, about enduring hardship. So that's probably why I got it. That has a lot of my buzzwords in it. So I'm very excited to read this. Again, never heard of this. So if you've heard of this, let me know what you've heard. And if you've read it, let me know how it was. So that is the last book. So I think there were 11 books in total. 11 books in total that are new to my library. Please let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought. And let me know what you have bought in the month of November, because who knows, if you convince me to buy it, I'm going to buy it. I love buying books. So I will see you all in the next one. Bye.